I just fight real fighters.
The truth is, these sports-washing, shady characters are paying you hundreds of millions of dollars to stop our fight from happening, and you're screwing over all your Mexican fans.
Canelo Alvarez just went off on Jake Paul during his Instagram Live, completely shutting down any talk of a fight between them. As expected, Jake was hyping up a matchup that was never even on the table, proving once again how out of touch he can be. Let's be real. Why would Canelo entertain such a fight? He's busy defending world titles against elite competition, not playing babysitter to a YouTuber who treats boxing like a side hobby.
Attention and anything around with Canelo.
After Canelo's video went viral, it became clear that Jake Paul had once again fabricated a headline barely a month into the new year. As usual, he stirred up excitement for a fight that was never real, hyping it up like a Hollywood blockbuster, only for it to fall apart before it even made it past the trailer stage.
He wants to fight Canelo. I'm just saying what he. That's what he.
Hear you. Then why is he not fighting Canelo? I mean, it'd be a fucking 30-second payday.
Jake Paul versus Canelo Alvarez was supposedly set for May 3rd, 2025, at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. A date so laughably ambitious that even the universe had to roll its eyes. Cinco de Mayo weekend is one of boxing's most sacred traditions, a stage reserved for true legends. But while Jake convinced himself he was stepping into greatness, Canelo never even bothered to RSVP.
Reporting of the information May 3rd coming out yesterday I don't think was coincidence in the sense that perhaps there was a little litmus test being.
Then came Netflix, crashing into the boxing world like it had just discovered the sport. Their first ever major boxing event promised big money, big marketing, and massive exposure. But the real question was, who was actually funding this spectacle? Reports swirled about a $100 million plus offer for Canelo. But let's be honest, where was that money coming from? Netflix? A mystery billionaire? A random Saudi investor? Or was it just smoke and mirrors?
It was all but done, right? How did it go from all but done to a change of heart? No, putting it out there to maybe try to get to see, how the public would react.
The whole setup felt shady, unnecessary, and about as credible as a Jake Paul boxing masterclass. But the biggest red flag, the weight difference. Canelo, a dominant 168-pound super middleweight, has spent years dismantling elite fighters in his division. Meanwhile, Jake Paul, a 200-pound cruiserweight with a highlight reel filled with retired MMA fighters and past their prime boxers, was pushing for a fight with a 32-pound gap. In boxing terms, that's like an elephant taking on a cheetah, two completely different worlds.
Canelo, Jake Paul's made a lot of noise, especially last week. Do you take any notice of him?
Who?
Jake Paul. Do you take any notice of him? He said
That
it 2 years.
The team.
Either Jake wanted Canelo to bulk up and slow down, or he hoped to convince the world this was a legitimate fight. Either way, it reeked of desperation. But of course, the media circus ran with it. ESPN, The Ring, even Eddie Hearn, they all speculated that the fight was happening. Meanwhile, the only two parties that actually mattered, Canelo and Jake's own promotion, MVP, remained completely silent. No contracts, no official announcements, just a storm of clickbait headlines that played perfectly into Jake's hands. But then, the cracks started to show. If Jake truly believed this fight was real, he was deep in denial. Because Canelo, he never entertained it, not for a second. Anytime someone brought up Jake's name, Canelo didn't just dismiss it, he laughed. And not just any laugh, but the kind you give when a toddler boldly challenges you to a fight.
Is not done until it is absolute.
Here's the reality. Canelo doesn't chase gimmicks for a payday. He earns $40 million or more per fight facing elite-level competition. He doesn't need to step into the ring with a social media prankster in boxing gloves to make headlines. His name alone sells out arenas, and his fights generate millions. Meanwhile, Jake Paul depends on big names just to stay relevant.
I'm thinking about is why you guys asking me for that especially fight J-Paul, please.
That's where the Butterbean problem kicks in. Remember Butterbean, the fan favorite novelty act who looked unstoppable until he wasn't. The moment he faced real competition, the hype crumbled. That's Jake Paul in 2024. As long as he was knocking out retired UFC veterans, the illusion worked.
Maybe in 2 years we can talk, but
Because I think some people would love you for knocking him out. I think that's
maybe. Yeah, you're right.
But then he stepped in against Tommy Fury, a boxer his own size, and lost. No controversy, no excuses, just cold, hard reality. Jake Paul wasn't a boxing phenom.
Sheikh himself, he says don't mess with the lion. 4 fights for Canelo with Riyadh season. The deal is done. A lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinion of a sheep. Fear the lion, not...
He wasn't a threat. He was just another guy using the sport for attention. Meanwhile, Canelo Alvarez was operating on an entirely different level. While Jake was busy shouting into his phone about fantasy fights,
Under this, you have Terrence Crawford. I'm waiting on Canelo in September and going to shock the world in Riyadh season. So that tweet comes out, and immediately the thought is, holy shit, what the just happened? Because the previous offer was 3 fights for Canelo. That apparently was done for, that he was washing away and rethinking because Turkey was going to look to do other things because Canelo was supposedly going to fight Jake. Now it's 4 fights.
Canelo was finalizing a 4-fight mega deal with Riyadh. One that guaranteed more money, more prestige, and higher-level competition than anything Jake could dream of. While Paul was hyping up matchups that never existed,
Don't pay attention in anything. In this fucking YouTuber, I just fight real fighters. Don't fucking around with Canelo.
Canelo was in real negotiations with Terrence Crawford. He had legitimate fights lined up: Charlo, Bivol, Benavides, bouts that would define his legacy, not just sell pay-per-views to casual fans.
Expose him. So we had a signed contract to fight. Here you can see Canelo's signature and my signature to the right. Claiming he's not fighting YouTubers. Bullshit. February 11th. Claiming he fights real fighters, but he's fighting Crawford, a 135-pound fighter, and running from a real fighter like David Benavides.
At the end of the day, Canelo didn't need Jake Paul. He didn't need gimmicks. He was focused on making history, while Jake was still busy chasing headlines. Canelo Alvarez just went off on Jake Paul during his Instagram Live, completely shutting down any talk of a fight between them. As expected, Jake was hyping up a matchup that was never even on the table, proving once again how out of touch he can be. Let's be real. Why would Canelo entertain such a fight? He's busy defending world titles against elite competition, not playing babysitter to a YouTuber who treats boxing like a side hobby. As usual, he stirred up excitement for a fight that was never real, hyping it up like a Hollywood blockbuster, only for it to fall apart before it even made it past the trailer stage. Jake Paul versus Canelo Alvarez was supposedly set for May 3rd, 2025, at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, a date so laughably ambitious that even the universe had to roll its eyes. Cinco de Mayo weekend is one of boxing's most sacred traditions, a stage reserved for true legends. But while Jake convinced himself he was stepping into greatness, Canelo never even bothered to RSVP. But the real question was, who was actually funding this spectacle? Reports swirled about a $100 million plus offer for Canelo. But let's be honest, where was that money coming from? Netflix? A mystery billionaire?